Hello, it's pleasure to be here. I am happy that I am opening UI part of the conference. My name is Mateusz Łędzewicz and today I am going to present you a small fairy tale named Long Road to Reusable Design System in Angular. But don't be afraid, I will show some technical stuff as well. Let's start. Long time ago, in the galaxy far away, there was a boy who wanted to become master of Angular. First thing which he saw was a wall of knowledge. To start working as Angular developer, he understood that it would be not so easy. But he was strong. He knew he was special. He had plan, time and attitude to become legendary developer. He started with components, models and services. TypeScript became easy stuff for him. He learned most of Angular building blocks. Also made his first fight with unit testing, NGRX and HTTP. The last part was JavaScript, but he was even better than Kyle Simpson. He knew JavaScript. He was able to pass all recruitment processes because he knew what event loop and hoisting is. He became alpha Angular developer, ready for programming journey, ready for his first job. So he started his first job in big software house. And immediately he was shocked because of the state of the code base. He noticed that there are a lot of copied and pasted components. They were almost the same or very similar. Then he realized it wasn't what he learned. It was totally different world. But our alpha developer was ambitious and full of ideas. He wanted to leave this codebase a better place than the codebase he found. And his goal was to create reusable sets of components with the usage of Angular inputs and outputs. He started coding and his first component was created. He named it Product Details Component with 3 inputs: name, description, and price. The component was created to present details of something, in this case, product. And the usage was super easy. Developer can take, fetch the data in smart component and pass all necessary parameters as inputs. He was proud. His first reusable component landed on production. Later, he had a new task. So he created next reusable component, this time for card details with the same set of inputs. But suddenly, evil product owner appeared. You said it will be reusable, but now it takes even more time. As I understood well, you need to create more components and estimation is bigger. What is going on? And unfortunately it occurred that he made the same heap of components, but in different way. Stressed and ashamed developer went in crazy state. He started hacking things. He started using product details component in cart details and other smart components which has similar look because there are the same inputs. So who cares? But then evil senior developer blocked his PR. So it occurred that he didn't change the word and inputs based reusable components became not reusable. A shame developer started to asking himself why everyone from Angular world are talking about greatness of presentational components. But like I said before, he was strong. He cannot sleep without the answers. And he found blind master of programming. Like a guru, he said one sentence: you need to think about presentational components as another layer. Thank you, Master, but what does it mean? So let's take a small break and talk about it. Here we have typical layer composition. We have UI layer, application layer, and data layer. Here we have a little mess, but I will not cover this part because I would like to focus on UI layer. But luckily tomorrow Greg Radio will tell you more about architectures and how to connect entities in Angular application. But let's back to the topic. In our architecture we have smart components which are responsible for communication with application layer and passing data to dummy components. It's another word for presentational components. And the problem which we have here is that dummy components are coupled with domain from application layer. And this was the thing our blind master wanted to tell us. That we need to separate application layer from pure UI layer, which stores our dummy components. So, to sum up, there is a data layer to fetch data based on protocol. It can be HTTP, but also local storage or GraphQL. Application layer performs some business logic, and smart components only know which part should be displayed or passed back to application layer. And of course, we can have model between smart and dummy components, but it can't be domain model. It should be some UI model like card, title. You can use primitives here. Think about it like HTML layer, just something to be displayed. It is not product, user, or other domain concept from your application. So, our really reusable component can look like that. It has header and content inputs, because here we don't need to care if it's title or price of the product. We have some structure to display, and it's all. Okay. Let's back to our fairy tale. When our alpha developer understood blind master's words, he persuaded managers to create an UI team responsible for design system. After months of development, they created their child, perfect design system. Everything was stored in Storybook. Our alpha developer was so proud of himself. But evil product owner occurred again, and he asked the team for small change. He knew it would be easy peasy, they had design system. Our developer was a little bit shocked. After months in basement of coding, he was completely sure that all components are ready. But big brain had an idea. Let's add new input. It's easy. And it was repeated many times. Here I would like to have a button, but also image and sometimes link. And suddenly in the code base, developers could find I love input component, like in presented example. It has button text, color size. The same for label, is disabled, is dirty, is touched, basically everything because I love inputs. And I would like to not comment what was in HTML code and how complex logic was there. If after if, in else after if, but before the switch. And our product owner was angry again. You said everything will be great and now application is unstable, everything is broken. Our sad developer, not alpha anymore, was thinking how to decouple spaghetti code he created. He was looking for the answers, and he found next guru of programming. You should create solution which is open for extension and close for modification. Thank you, mate, and let's stop for a second and talk about his words. We already know that inputs can be very reusable, but maybe too much. The thing here is that maybe there is a second dimension. And yes, it is. It's called open for extension. And we need to find a solution which can be reusable and open for extension. Then we will have powerful design system in Angular. And the answer here is content projection, which is like Lego composition. We can easily reuse things. And it's super natural because let's see some native HTML elements like div. We are not passing content as attribute or Angular input. We use content projection, and thanks to that we can put to divs not only text but whatever we want. Let's check out Angular material components called matFormField. I don't see here inputs. They allow to display mat label but also native inputs, and I can add more than one element. But I don't want to go deep in this topic, because fortunately today you will have a chance to learn more about it. However, unfortunately there is an edge. I saw many times examples like here. Two generic components that we can put everything there just for style purpose. So our solution is extremely open for extension but totally not reusable. After this lesson, our developer was completely destroyed again. But again, he never gave up, so he was looking for the answers. How to make this UI? It should be simple. And finally, he found Design System God, who has answers for all questions. Why you are creating components if you only need common styles for native elements? His brain exploded. What? I don't need components? The main block of Angular applications? Yes, exactly. Small comment from me. We developers like to over-engineering simple things and use fancy technologies for simple stuff. That's why I would like now to back a little bit to basics. Keep it stupid simple and show you 4 rules which we learned based on several projects and many developers' mistakes. Thanks to that, we can easily move from I love components state to I don't need component. Maybe. Because if we need to have the same look of the component in many places, we can just create global styles, use utility classes. Then we can easily extend our button with directive, but the look is still the same. Or maybe add additional HTML attribute without adding new inputs to our super generic component. We have HTML, which is awesome, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel again. And what is more, HTML has content projection. We can display something inside the button and it looks good. So we have the first rule. If you need to have common look of your component, just use CSS utility classes. It was created for that. We don't need components. Okay, let's talk about it. What if I need to add some custom behavior? Then for sure components should be created. And again, not. A lot of people forget about directives, which are awesome for programming behavior, because we can introduce the same logic, some kind of magic, to the button But if our evil product owner would like to have exactly the same behavior on image, we can just add it there as well. If he needs link with the same behavior, again, we can just add few words to our code and it's working. We are not closed by components boundary because we only need behavior, not the structure. So we have the second rule. If you need to introduce some behavior, use directive. Forget about components. Okay, but our developer is still trying to find other cases. What if I need some reusable structure with behavior and styles? Now, maybe it's better to check if component you are looking for already exists, for example in Angular Material or Bootstrap. We developers likes to introduce custom components, but is it really worth to spend 1 or even more weeks on creating something that already exists, like autocomplete from Angular Material? And instead, we can spend few hours on styling it to fit component to our design. I know, sometimes it's not so easy, but for sure it's possible. And again, we have many features for free. We don't need to create next component with content projection. And we have third rule. If component you want to create already exists, just use it and style it. Sounds good. But smart guy, please tell me what if no one created component I need? Then you should create presentational component, but do it with the usage of content projection and directives. Like an example of forms from Angular Material. I don't see any inputs here. I can provide many elements with the usage of content projection. I can use directives on elements inside to sometimes to connect some behaviors between elements. The material table is a great example of it. And I can use native inputs or other components. Again, I am free of inputs boundaries. So Angular team, maybe it's time for removing inputs from the codebase? I'm joking, of course, because inputs are crucial in directives. But from component? Okay, let's back. We have the last rule. Only if first 3 rules doesn't fit, you should create presentational component, but do it with the usage of content projection and directives. Okay, it was a long fairy tale, but what is the lesson we can learn based on it? Of course, you can have your personal interpretation, and I hope you have, but for me, one of the most important lessons is that reusability is important, but it can only work good for design system if your solution is open for extension too. Because design system should be treated as external system of your application, and we should not change it a lot. It should be flexible. And the last, it's good sometimes to not focus 100% on technical possibilities of your framework, but take a look at principles as well, which can help you create better software. Then you can connect this knowledge with possibilities of the framework. And trust me, it's not the end. There are more difficulties on the road of creating awesome design system in Angular. But we have starting point, or even we are in the middle. But now you have tools to figure out something better. Okay, let's back to the road for the second. It was a long and tricky journey. So to not leave you confused, let's make a short summary of what we discovered today. Our first bus stop was placed in a copy and paste land. It sounds trivial, but I can tell you that not a long time ago, the manager in one of my previous jobs asked me if I can copy and paste bunch of components for new feature to make development faster and avoid regressions. So yep, it's still a common case in some companies. Next, we learned that it's not a good idea to create hybrid components and mix domain logic with presentational layer. That's why it's good to create smart components to connect UI layer with application layer, and only if it's needed, dummy components to reuse some parts of UI. On the next corner, we discovered that inputs are extremely reusable, but not open for extension. So basically, we should avoid using inputs. But of course, there are scenarios that this particular feature of Angular would help, especially with directives. It was not clear. Don't understand me wrong, styles encapsulation is a great feature of Angular framework. But unfortunately, it causes a big amount of the same styles in many places because of copy and paste methodology, which we developers love. Eventually, it leads to small differences between similar components, and it's huge work to redesign your application. We were there, and after successful refactor, we removed more than a half of existing styles from components and replaced them with utility classes, which are not perfect as well, but this is a topic for next episode of this presentation. Okay, but heading to the end, we learned that the content projection is awesome, but can introduce two generic components, which are ultra open for extension, but not reusable at all. Eventually, we found the green land. We understood that sometimes introducing component is over-engineering, and instead we can just use styles for styles. And it's not worth to create component to code some behavior. If behavior is independent and not rely on some common HTML structure, just use directive if you need to introduce behavior. Our mentor also suggested that before we decide to create new component, it's good to take a look and check if Angular material or other library has already component we need. Sometimes we need to introduce some custom styling, but hopefully it will be reusable later. Good example here can be a table. I know, it's awesome to create next version of a table. A lot of challenges, sorting, filtering, displaying different rows and columns. But how much time and money we can save if we just style material table and use it in our project. Once in one project, we even forced design team to change project a little bit when we show comparison of costs. If we remove one simple element from the design, it occurs that this tiny element is totally not important for designers. Thanks to that, we saved 1 or even 2 weeks of development time. Sometimes it's good to share your thoughts with them. And final rule, we should create component only if all 3 rules are not applicable. And of course, I am talking here about presentational components, not smart components. But do not use inputs. Instead, introduce content projection and UI directives. Angular Material Repository is a good place to check how good it can be done. I encourage you to check. And okay, based on the whole story, we can make set of rules how to create reusable and open for extension UI components. First, do not mix presentation layer with domain logic. Second, stop using inputs. Third, do not create components. Instead, create reusable styles, create directives, use existing components, and only if you really need to create new component. And this is one thing I would like you to remember from this presentation. Do not create components if it's not needed. And thanks to that, we have rules which can save you a lot of time and money. And trust me, it will give you a lot of fun when you can easily redesign your application. Product owners, sales, and business people love changing colors and fonts. And I hope that after this talk, you will stop spinning around with your ideas, but you will have a plan and you will be on a good way to create not awesome, but perfect design system in your company. And of course, if you would like to skip this long road of learning, join our community and trainings, we can make a little bit faster it. And thank you a lot for this opportunity, and feel free to ask me any question on Twitter. And I would leave the summary for you for a few seconds. Thank you a lot, take care, and bye bye.